You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 19th, and this is the Doug Collins Podcast. I am Chip Lake. I'll be guest hosting today with our illustrious producer, James, and we're going to, Friday Fun Day, we're going to go with the theme that we normally have on Fridays. We're going to mix it up. We're not going to talk about tensions in the Middle East, which we touched upon on Wednesday. We're going to probably leave that. That will develop through the weekend. We'll leave that for Doug to address a little bit on Monday. James and I are going to do an NFL draft preview because the NFL draft is next week. It starts next Thursday evening. And so with the first round, second and third round on Friday, and the remaining rounds on Saturday. So we're going to talk about some mock drafts. We're going to talk about where some of these prospects are likely to go in the first round of the draft. We're going to talk about Jontay Porter getting a lifetime ban from the NBA for gambling activities and how stupid that was on his part, especially the type of bets that he's been accused of influencing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the transfer portal, and we are going to wrap up talking about a very, very, very bizarre story. Very bizarre story out of Brazil where a woman was arrested for taking her dead uncle to a bank to take out a loan. And I'm not kidding. That's a true story. So stick with us. We'll be back right after the break. Doug Collins Podcast.
Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us. I want to welcome to the podcast our illustrious producer, James Simeone. And James, today is the day we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah.
Because the draft is now within a week's time. The draft is begins next Thursday evening in Detroit, I believe, is where they're holding the draft this year.
Yeah, that was a choice.
Yeah, yeah, but look, the NFL always makes it fun, right? Wherever it is.
Yeah.
And, the NFL will do a good job to make Detroit fun, I guess, right?
Did you see the Hollywood sign though that was brought there?
No.
So I get this was a while. This was like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago. I think they when the NFL does something, they try to make it big. So Detroit, I guess, they asked for a Hollywood sign. And they got one, but it was placed in a terrible spot, and it looks like a 7-year-old did it. And it just only adds to how, Detroit.
Well, they're trying to make
Detroit's been on has been the butt of a joke for a while, and that's tough to deal with. But
they're trying to make Detroit not look.
You have to, because it's now a premier team, right?
Yeah,
you have to. When Tennessee Titans are playing well, what was the first thing they did? They sent the draft over there.
Yeah,
Nashville's popular. The Predators were doing well. The Titans were playing good football. I think they were just in the AFC Championship game at that time. So you bring it to Nashville. So it's a good move. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be fine. Everyone's going to enjoy the draft. I think they'll have less attendance than normal because nobody wants to go to Detroit, but it'll still be fun because it's the NFL.
It'll be a lot of fun. And one of the things I think, James, that makes this draft fun. First of all drafts are fun, right? Because, when football season ends, there's always a kind of a sports lull. I have a good friend of mine that's in sports talk radio here in Atlanta, and he says, they get 70% of their advertising revenue over 4 months of the season, and that's football because that's always when they get the most listeners. And so,
yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, every time the football season ends, we cling on to basketball and playoff hockey and college basketball, right?
That's right.
But that entire time, we're discussing who's going into the NFL draft.
That's
and
right.
Who's going into the NFL, right? That once that ends, though, I don't care what anyone says. The time between the end of the playoffs for basketball and hockey and the beginning of football season, I know it's baseball season, and I know people care about baseball, but it's only baseball. Luckily, this summer, and I'm a nerd for the Olympics. I'm in. I'm all in on the Olympics, especially because the USA is sending their Avengers squad. But if there's no Olympics this summer, I try to get to as many baseball games as possible, or go. But it's basically you're just day drinking because you're bored. Yeah. You're like, when is football coming back? And they're like, I promise you, it's the end of August. And you're like, I don't have time for that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, James, let's kind of dig into it. I've been kind of studying mock draft boards, as I know you have, and I know a lot of people are this time of year. Obviously, Mel Kiper with ESPN and Adam Schefter with ESPN are two people that I think folks are used to seeing regularly on ESPN talking. And they have talking on ESPN about where they think a lot of these players are going to be drafted. And, one of the reasons why Kiper and Schefter are so fun to listen to is, they have probably better sources within the industry.
Correct.
With general managers and assistant general managers and personnel, NFL team personnel, than probably anybody out there. But I printed 3 mock drafts that I'm looking at, and I know you've got another one in front of you as well. And
yeah, from Peter Schrager of NFL.com.
Yeah, and I've got Mel Kiper's draft, and I've also got a draft from Brendan Donahue from the Huddle Report, and a guy named Ryan McChrystal. And I kind of follow those 3 people, and what I think is very interesting. Extremely interesting in this year's draft is the only three things that they agree with that are likely to happen in the first round is they all agree that Caleb Williams is going to go number one to the Bears at a USC. And I think we've all, kind of realized, especially after the Justin Fields trade, after they really, offloaded Justin Fields for nothing, essentially, nothing to what they thought they could get for him, 3 months earlier on the open market. After that, everything is kind of up in the air. So, this could be, the first time in a long time, and likely will be the first time in a long time, when the first three picks in the draft are the quarterback position. This is a quarterback deep draft. A couple of years ago, we didn't have that. If you remember, the Falcons drafted Desmond Ridder 3 years ago, and he was the third quarterback off the board, and they got him early in the third round. This draft, the third quarterback off the board will be gone after the third pick.
Well, yeah. So I've seen a lot of mock drafts, obviously having people trade up. As long as it's a trade up to the fourth pick, whoever it is, JJ McCarthy's going fourth. The order is it's Caleb Williams, then it's Jaden Daniels and Drake May swap and everything, right? It's either Jaden McDaniels or Drake May going 2 or 3. And then everyone has JJ McCarthy as their fourth quarterback off the board, which, man, if you told people that the day Michigan won the national title, people would have looked at you like you were an absolute psychopath.
Sure.
Am I right?
You're
and
right.
then we were talking about this weeks ago, that I was trying to convince myself that I wanted JJ McCarthy. Because as a Vikings fan, obviously, the teams that need quarterbacks on this list, for the record, we can go through this real quick. The Giants need a quarterback, supposedly. The Vikings need a quarterback, Denver needs a quarterback, and the Raiders need a quarterback. Those are the top teams that need a quarterback. If you're the Chargers or Arizona, you're in a great position because you get to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
Realistically. And I don't know about your mock draft, but in Peter Schrager's mock draft, they have the Giants moving up to get JJ McCarthy.
At what pick?
What was that?
At what pick? Where would they move up?
At the fourth pick, they trade.
He has.
See, they have the sixth pick. They have the sixth pick, so they have a huge opportunity here. Because, I'm sorry, they have the fourth. The Giants have the sixth pick, so the Giants move from 6 to 4, right? So they get their quarterback, but Arizona gets possibly one of the top receivers in the draft still. Because I don't know what the gap is between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze is, but it's clearly not enough for them not to trade that pick in this mock draft.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, though, because Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably he's an incredible choice.
Yeah.
But I don't think if you get Rome Odunze, you're going to be like, damn it, did we pass on Marvin Harrison Jr.? You know what I'm saying?
No, I know. And look, I think, I think this wide receiver crop in this draft is really 3 deep. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze from Washington. And I don't think you go wrong with any of those 3 guys.
You really can't. It's going to be like that draft with Mike Evans.
Yeah.
There was like 9 receivers in that draft, and they all hit.
I think, James, the amount of draft day, I say draft day, really early first round trades. I mean, it's not unusual to see trades in the NFL draft, but I think, I think we're going to see a lot of trades pretty early in the draft because, and I'm going to go ahead and just bring up a team that I know is near and dear to your heart, the Minnesota Vikings. Everybody's waiting to see what Minnesota does. What Minnesota does. I mean, do they do they draft up and pick J.J. McCarthy? I've got 3 mock drafts in front of me, and all 3 of them have Minnesota doing different things. Mel Kiper does believe that they will jump up to the 5th position, and they will trade, and they will take J.J. McCarthy. Brendan O'Donohue has them trading up to the 4th position and taking Drake May from North Carolina, which interesting. And then Ryan McChrystal doesn't think they're going to be able to execute a draft day trade. He doesn't think they believe in J.J. McCarthy enough to give up what they would have to give up in a trade to move up. And he has the Vikings staying at 11 and picking Dallas Turner, the edge rusher from Alabama, who's I think going to be a phenomenal NFL player.
We just lost an edge rusher. We just lost one of the best ones in the league. So
yeah. So what do you think as a Minnesota Vikings? As a Minnesota Vikings fan, what are your expectations heading into the draft?
Well, I have hopes and dreams, Chip, but I don't know if I have expectations because you just laid out 3 opposite things, right? I guess I don't know. Can you say 3 opposite? I don't know if that works. I don't understand it. I don't understand language enough to know. All right. First and foremost, us trading up for J.J. McCarthy means that we believe that we're good enough right now where we can let what's his name? Who do we pick up in the offseason? I'm blanking out on his name right now.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't even know. The Minnesota Vikings. Whatever it is, it's not a quarterback. It's a
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it's not a quarterback that you're going to hand the key.
So our idea. So Sam Darnold's clearly a stopgap, right? That's the word everyone loves using. So Sam Darnold's going to be a stopgap quarterback for us. So whoever we pick this year, I doubt is going to play unless Sam Darnold is, and I mean dreadful, in this offense, which should be pretty hard to do.
He is Sam Darnold. So.
He is Sam Darnold. That's true. And he did have 2 of the worst opportunities to start your career in the history of football in the Jets and then Carolina. However, then you tell me another draft says they're going to trade up to 4, and they're going to go get Drake May somehow, and Drake May is going to drop to 4 somehow because everyone was freaking out about his pro day, even though 3 or 4 weeks ago we were talking about him having the best arm and turning into a Justin Herbert. So now, then there's that. And then you tell me, all right, they're not going to do any of that. They don't believe in any of the quarterbacks in this draft, because what they're saying by not drafting a quarterback at 11 who would be Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix, probably in that area, they don't believe in them either, and they're going to go get a big-time defensive end, an edge rusher, and they're going to turn their team slowly, even though they have all that offense and they need a quarterback immediately, they're going to make that choice because they believe next year they might be a better option. That's all I'm hearing. And all I can tell you is if you don't get a quarterback in this draft, I genuinely believe they're going to regret it no matter what the decision, who it is.
Yeah.
They will regret not taking them.
Yeah, I was watching a draft special specifically on the quarterback position yesterday on ESPN. And, Mel Kiper, who has, how long has he been evaluating college talent for
Since
ESPN?
he got yelled at by the Colts.
Yeah, that's right. He did. He did. Kiper said in all of my years of evaluating quarterbacks, he said J.J. McCarthy might be the hardest quarterback that I've evaluated. And he went on to say the reason he is one of the hardest quarterbacks to evaluate is because, he said, I watched a lot of film on the kid and I kept on waiting for that wow moment, right? Wow, what can this kid do that is exceptionally better than so many of his peers? And he goes, I never saw that on the tape. He goes, but I also didn't see many mistakes either. He said he ran in he was the quarterback in a system that was run heavy, that had a good offensive line. And so they didn't ask him to do a whole lot. But what they asked him to do, he did really, really well. And, he said, ironically, Michigan was closer to a prototypical NFL offense than a college offense. So, he said, look, J.J. McCarthy might go on to have a very long and successful pro career. but there's nothing that really sticks out at me in evaluating him where I'm like, wow, this kid's good at, is could be really good at blank or blank. And you hate to use the word game manager. We talked about it a lot last year, and it was, used as a phrase to kind of credit for those that wanted to be critical of, for those that wanted to be critical of Brock Purdy. But the reality is I'll take a game manager all day long, because when folks are calling quarterbacks game managers, what does that really mean? Doesn't that mean they're winning football games?
You rather have Brock Purdy or Jameis Winston?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, Jameis Winston's going to do something, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, that's the worst play I've ever seen." And then 10 minutes later, he throws a touchdown from the opposite side of the field, and you're like, "Who are you, and why can't you do this all the time?"
That's right.
With Brock Purdy, the difference, though. I will say, Brock Purdy made some pretty incredible plays last year that people forget, because it's easy to, look at him and be like, "Yeah, he threw that short out route to Debo, and Debo ran it 40 yards. Or he had this great, screen pass to McCaffrey, and he took it 50. That's why, but if that's the play and they get a touchdown, who cares?
Yeah. Hey, well, it's the same knock on Bo Nix. I mean, look, I'm a huge Bo Nix fan. Obviously, I'm Auburn graduate, Auburn football through and through.
Are you? I had no idea.
Yeah, that's right. Went to college with his dad. His dad played at Auburn when I was there. And look, everybody's like, "Well, aren't you mad at Bo for transferring?" And I said, not at all. Because look, I'm a father, and I've got 2 kids in college, and while neither one of them play college football, if you're a quarterback, Auburn's not a program where you want to send your kids the last 4 or 5, 6, 7 years. It's just not. And the reality is he had no offensive line. He had no skill players. And so he played 3 seasons at Auburn, and the guy just got killed, and he didn't put up great numbers. He didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have skill players. He was running for his life. He has an opportunity to go all the way across the country. I mean, Auburn and Oregon are a long way away. It's not a drive. It's a good drive. And look what he did there with a good offensive line and skill players. He developed.
I mean, he was immediately good.
He did. And I'm curious to see where Bo goes. I happen to think he's going to go number 12 to the Broncos, because I think the Broncos, need that. The knock on Bo Nix is from listening to kind of the talking heads on the ESPN show yesterday, is arm strength. His arm strength is not elite like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know. That's great. It's great to have elite arm strength, but I'm going to tell you, a quarterback that is probably in the bottom 20% of the NFL in arm strength, that's the San Francisco 49ers quarterback that we talked about just a minute ago, and that's Brock Purdy. I don't know that you need arm strength as long as you can read and see the field really well, and you can be accurate and not make mistakes, right?
Who else carved himself a nice career without the elite arm strength is Kirk Cousins.
That's exactly right.
Kirk Cousins was talked about, he doesn't have that cannon. Yeah, but Kirk Cousins just made himself another $185 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying – also, it also depends on the situation you're in, right? I think maybe if he goes to the Broncos, their offense isn't set up for greatness, but I'm just saying, if he drops past the Broncos and goes to the Raiders, I think that's a great spot for him.
Yeah.
You got one of the best wide receivers in the history of the sport, and you have a good defense, and your offensive line has played well. I think that could be a decent spot for him.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think it'll be a great spot for him. If not, with really 4 quarterbacks likely to go in the top 6 picks, it leaves the 5th and 6th quarterback, who is Michael Penix and Bo Nix, kind of, they're kind of the wild cards of this draft, right? I'm
sorry. I've been convincing myself now that Michael Penix might be the pick for the Vikings, and I'll tell you why. Every single time I think of Michael Penix and I see Michael Penix, obviously, what do we all think of right now at this moment? It is the Michigan game, the championship game where he They dared him to throw it short, and he didn't do well. He also just didn't play well at all. He didn't even hit the throws he normally hits. I'm not saying that it's unfair because Michigan's a good defense and maybe his line didn't play well and the rest of his team didn't play great, and you can put that on the whole team and not just him. That's fine. And if it is just him and he had one bad game and we're going to judge his entire career on one bad game just because it's a big game, I don't know if that's fair either. However, what we were talking about prior to that was he's got all the intangibles of Patrick Mahomes without the short game. Like, that was their only concern, is that in a game, he's the opposite of a game manager right now. But in the right system, he could be something close to that with that cannon of an arm. He's like a Jontay Culpepper. He just, as soon as he catches it, he can launch it. Did I lose you, Chip?
I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I got you. But yeah, so that's like, to me, like, I don't know if not. I think with the guys in this draft, if you can get Drake May, go get Drake May. I really believe that. Let him sit a year or two, and he could be your next Jordan Love. He can be the next Justin Herbert. I'm not opposed to that if any team were to decide to do that. But Michael Penix is ready now, and he could be ready in a year given the right system. And if you're talking about, I hate Colin Cowherd because I think he's wrong 98% of the time. But if there is something he's right about, it's that the Vikings are a furnished apartment.
Yeah.
They have everything you need for a quarterback to step in and just play decently.
Yeah.
You got one of arguably the best wide receiver in football, a great number 2, one of the best tight ends, a great running back now. Great, it's probably strong word because he's older, but he was a great running back. He knows how to play ball, and Aaron Jones, and they have a good offensive line. So I don't know. I think Michael Penix with the 3 with the Raiders, the Vikings, and the Broncos could be an immediate starter, but also could wait a year and be a good player for them.
Yeah, and Penix is it's going to be interesting to see where Penix goes because a lot of the points you just pointed out, but I don't think a team. It's possible that both Bo Nix and Michael Penix slipped early second round. It really is.
Sure, absolutely. They've made that pretty clear.
And if I'm an NFL, if I'm evaluating quarterbacks and I'm an NFL general manager, I'm probably more likely, I think, to take a run on Bo Nix than I am Michael Penix in the first round, only because Bo Nix hasn't had the injuries in his career that Michael Penix 100%. Has had to face. And
that's the other part I totally forgot about, Chip.
There's just questions on Penix's durability, but look, second round still early in the draft, but that's a good time to take a run at a quarterback that just had a monster season. And you hit the nail on the head, man. He had his worst game at the worst time. And so,
she's going to become a Shane Falco from the replacement. That's what it's looking like.
So he's either going to make it to the NFL and prove all of those and prove all of those evaluators wrong, which is completely possible. Look, I'm a big Michael Penix fan. I'm cheering for him. I think his story. I mean, he's overcome not one but 2 ACL reconstruction surgeries. Not one, but 2. I mean, who does that before their
people
draft?
in their careers after that?
Yeah,
they just walk away from the
it's just insane. My youngest son tore his ACL his senior year in high school. I see what he went through just to get his knee back. And by the way, he didn't play football after surgery because it was his senior season. So I can't imagine what it was like to get that knee ready, for full sport contact. So I'm really cheering. I'm really cheering for him. I hope he ends up just being in a good position, right? Because if you do fall to number in the second round in the draft, you have the potential to be in a better spot, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Brock Purdy only got a chance to play because all the quarterbacks above him got hurt, and he was in a really good program. It kind of reminds me of where Minnesota is right now in some respects, you know? And so the question –
they're in a weird spot. Minnesota is in a weird spot because they have everything to win.
Yeah.
That they can win games. Unfortunately, they are in a nasty division.
Yeah, they are.
Right now, the Vikings, and the same goes. I mean, this is why I think Atlanta took their shot at Kirk Cousins, is because their division is very winnable. If you have had Kirk Cousins in that Atlanta offense, they might walk through that thing.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean to everybody else in that division, but if they took a shot on Kirk Cousins because they're like, oh, we can win right now. Where the Vikings knew, like, we could take Kirk Cousins, but we're taking a risk on the idea that he's 35 with, coming off the injury in a division where everybody's young and ready to go. And, I mean, if you listen, the Bears are about to get Caleb Williams, and in my opinion, we're convinced that I'm a little less convinced that he's the god that they talked about in the beginning, but I just can't imagine he's not going to be a perennial Pro Bowler / All Pro. I just think he's too talented. I don't care that he has a pink. The off the field stuff means nothing to me if he can throw a football.
That's right.
Everyone freaked out when Dan Marino smoked weed in the 80s, and they lost on probably the best quarterback who's ever lived next to Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. As far as talent is concerned, we all know TB is in his own category. But I'm just saying, like, that you can't move on from that. Don't worry about that stuff. He is going to dominate the NFL. We do have to take a moment, though, and realize, like, don't expect the season we all got last year from what's his name in Houston. Like, that's a miracle season that you need to get out of your mind now, because Caleb's going to have some struggles.
Yeah, he definitely is. He definitely is. And let me ask you this, as a Vikings fan, because you said, I mean, they do have a lot more pieces right now, a lot more than a lot more than Washington, a lot more than Chicago. A lot more than New England, who are going to take quarterbacks at 1, 2, and 3. But if you do get JJ McCarthy, do you think it's the expectations of the Vikings brass that JJ McCarthy immediately steps up and starts, or do they let him sit behind a more experienced Sam Darnold and
100%
learn his first year?
Anybody we draft is sitting unless it's, I think, Michael Penix or Bo Nix. And I think they'll sit too, to be 100% honest with you. I think Kevin O'Connell, I mean this in the nicest way possible. I believe he is delusional enough to believe he can make anyone a superstar in this league. That's how good he thinks he is at his job, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. I have seen him take quarterbacks that have been on our roster for years that look like they had no shot at at doing anything on a football field, mainly because Kirk Cousins was there and wasn't going to give him a shot. But Kirk Cousins was having before he got hurt last year, he had arguably an MVP type season. He was having an MVP type season.
Yeah.
If you just numbers alone, don't worry about the wins, because that was God. But then we brought in the Pasternaut. And we all know what happened for 2 games. It went straight downhill after that. But for 2 games, the dude lit it up. Then we brought in we've had him for 3 or 4 years now. And again, I'm blanking on his name because I'm a horrible fan. But he comes in and has like a couple of good games. Yeah, we lost to Jake Browning, who we let go, but it was still a close game. My point is that this man thinks he can work with anyone. You're talking about the talent pool of quarterbacks in this draft. I genuinely believe that whether we take Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, or in some crazy world where Jaden Daniels slips, because I heard that a couple times, which is really starting to piss me off. Don't even bring that up, because I don't want to get my hopes up. That will turn any of those guys into a star. Now, I have a question for you here, because I'm looking at this, and we can jump to another subject in a minute, but besides the quarterbacks in this draft, we talked about the wide receivers. Could the Cardinals and the Chargers be in any better position if you're a franchise right now?
Could what now?
They both have. Could they be in any better position? Those are 2 teams that just need. Well, the Cardinals and Chargers need a little bit more, but as far as getting their quarterback something, they both need a wide receiver. That's all they need
to
get kick-started on offense. The Chargers need a wide receiver. Their wide receivers are gone. They let Keenan Allen go. I can't even – that makes no sense to me, but whatever. They're going to get two of the best wide receivers in the league right now. Coming into this league, Kyler Murray's about to save his job with that because he started playing really well at the end of that season last year. He came back and was immediately good. The Cardinals suck, but he was good. And the Chargers are another one, but those are two teams that could not have fallen into a better position. They have they pull all the strings for every team in the NFL right now.
Oh,
it's kind of amazing.
Well, and if there wasn't such a need, excuse me, if there wasn't such a need for the quarterback position at the top of the draft, one could argue, and I think that it would have a very strong argument that the Cardinals at 4 might be getting the best player on the draft board overall, Mark Harrison Jr., right?
Exactly.
And so it's a great position for them to be in. And you say with Jaden Daniels, and I think Jaden Daniels is an incredible prospect as well. But two of the top 4 receivers in this draft are LSU receivers, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. And so, did Jaden Daniels put up numbers because he had two of the top 4 receivers in the country? Or did Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. get to be the top two of the top 4 receivers in the country because Jaden Daniels was their quarterback? Probably a little bit of both, but I'm curious to see how both of them end up.
You can compare it to another LSU team that won a championship. All 3 of those guys went on to be the best, some of the best of their position, right? Joe Burrow is a top 5 QB, and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So,
God, I forgot Jamar Chase was on that team as well.
That to me is
insane.
If you look at that team, it blows your mind that the 2 of them were on a team together. It does. All
1
3
year. Joe Burrow was only there 1 year.
1 year, and the 2 of them were just catching everything.
Yeah, no, if you're Ed Orgeron, Ed Orgeron will be spending money for the rest of his life, thanks to those 3 guys.
Oh yeah,
Ed Orgeron, who I love as a personality, he's larger than life personality.
Yeah,
he really doesn't have a body of work as a head football coach that looks very successful, with the exception of the year he had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. What an embarrassment of riches for a college football coach at a head football coach. And then he got paid, and then Orgeron got paid, and he didn't win again. He didn't
do anything after that.
No, and then he got fired 2 years later, and he hasn't worked since. But to his credit, he doesn't need to work. So, in any event,
no, he just goes around telling stories about how he tricked kids into coming to his team with shrimp. That's
love the guy though. Big personality.
Oh yeah, no, he just always sounds like he's eating rocks. That's just the way to describe his voice. He's just constantly eating rocks.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is in out in the bush in Louisiana, Bayou country.
You can do whatever you want out there. Hell, what's his name? Steven Seagal had a TV show where he was a cop out there.
Yeah.
Probably the funniest TV show on the planet. If anyone has ever seen it, please watch it. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's so bad.
Exactly right. Well, before we wrap up and move on, kudos to the NFL for making the NFL draft what it is today, right? 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the draft was a weekend event over a Saturday and a Sunday, and now they've made it into a lot of fun. It's a 3-day event, a Thursday night. Two of those days are prime time, Thursday and Friday nights, and look. You can get some good talent, and towards the end of this draft. Puka Nacua wasn't drafted until Saturday last year, and then 3 years ago, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last guy taken, and what a pick by San Francisco.
Yeah, never be afraid of your late round picks.
No,
don't dismiss them immediately.
Not at all.
There's Stephon Diggs, who probably caught the most important football in Vikings history, even though it led to nothing.
Yeah, 100%.
Was a 5th-round pick. You just never know where you're getting it.
Tom Brady.
Half the guys are and also check on your undrafted guys. Check on your undrafted guys.
Absolutely.
Those guys turn into Adam Thielen and John Randall. So
that's exactly right. There will be some undrafted free agents that end up contributing. End up contributing big time for their teams next year, not just in the career, but next year. But kudos to the NFL for doing that. Looking forward to that. By the time we do Friday's Finest next week, the first round will be in the books, and it will be in our.
Yeah, and I'll be crying. I'll be like, we didn't even draft anyone. We traded all our picks.
Trade news story out of the NBA: Jontay Porter from the Toronto Raptors. Stupid, dumb. Not only did he get caught betting on NBA basketball, which is a big, big no-no, and everybody knows that. If you get caught gambling as a professional athlete, you do not gamble the sport that you play, number one. Number two, you blame it on your interpreter. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have gone there. But we hear in a lot of these gambling scandals the words point shaving. And so that everybody knows that's listening, point shaving means, there's a line out there in total number of points, or there's the line in the game, meaning Detroit Pistons 7-point favorite and they win by 2 or they lose. But that's point shaving when you're trying to get the outcome of that. And that's wrong too. But this idiot, Jontay Porter, decides he is going to illegally bet on a player prop on him on a night that he knows he doesn't feel good and he's not 100%. So he tells he claims that he tells a 24-year-old confidential information about his health to one known bettor. And they say that another bettor Porter knew then placed an $80,000 wager.
Parlay, by the way.
Porter would underperform in the Raptors' 20th game against the Sacramento Kings. The league said the bettor had it. The bettor was stood to make $1.1 million if the wager hit. Thankfully, it's very hard right now to illegally gamble, and the regulators not figure it out. And I say the regulators, the internal regulators with the league.
They found out immediately.
Immediately.
Can we talk about why they found out immediately, though?
What's that?
Chip? This is very important for everyone. I want everyone to get this very clear. Jontay Porter is at most the 9th or 10th man on that bench.
Yes.
Okay? That means he's not a starter, and that means he's not getting a ton of playing time. Okay? If somebody bets $80,000 on Michael Jordan or LeBron James, the Vegas doesn't really care because that makes sense to people. If somebody places $80,000 on a parlay that includes a guy named Jontay Porter, who plays about 4 minutes a game and knows he's coming out of this game, the red flag is going straight through the roof. The only thing that Jontay Porter is known for is being the brother of Michael Porter, who plays for the Denver Nuggets, who's a starter. That's it. Jontay Porter and guys, he's on the roster, so it's not like he doesn't have money. Let's not forget that, though, either. He is actually on the roster. Doesn't have a 10-day contract. He's not internet. He is on the roster. So someone with that kind of money who said, you know what, I make enough money, but let's screw it. I'm not getting enough playing time. Let's make some money off this. I'm baffled. I'm honestly baffled by the stupidity.
Jason Whitlock. We all know Jason Whitlock. Very controversial. A lot of fun to watch.
Not a fan of him, but continue.
Yeah, it's but his stuff is always
entertaining.
Always entertaining. Speaking of the entertainment value of Jason Whitlock and Jontay Porter, I think it was Jason Whitlock that went to Twitter after Porter's after Porter's suspension. Did you see what Whitlock said?
No.
Whitlock, who is unabashedly conservative,
Correct.
and the NBA is not. I mean, let's just face it, right? The NBA is very woke. They're very progressive. They're very left. So Jason Whitlock suggested that Jontay Porter should become trans, play in the WNBA, and score 40, 50 points a game. I mean, Jontay Porter's what? 6'9", 6'10"? 6'10"?
Yeah, he can pull a Joanna man. 100%. He can do it.
You put him in the WNBA, and so look, I'm not sure that Jontay Porter would want to go to those extremes, but in today's environment, the left has said they are fine with men competing in women's sports.
We are always a day closer to the movie Joanna Man, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So, in any event,
I still think Caitlin Clark's going to give him buckets regardless. So
that would be that would be a high price to pay if you were Jontay.
I'll tell you what, Chip. Can we talk about though the NBA? In the words of Pat McAfee, put the hammer down on this issue immediately.
Oh yeah,
they said banned. Don't even think about coming back. Don't even talk to us. Don't even wear another NBA jersey. If we catch you outside an NBA arena, we are going to shoot on sight. The NBA said you're not allowed to play basketball in a professional manner for the NBA ever again.
And he's an easy example to make, right? Because as you said, it's not like he's a superstar.
No.
And he was generating revenue for the NBA.
Absolutely not.
He was getting in and maybe getting 12 to 17 minutes a game. Maybe.
Maybe. I can look this up right now. I am actually curious because let's see. Jontay Porter stats. So Jontay Porter, if I can find it here, he played 14 minutes a game and averaged 4.5 points per game. So, no, if you're putting money on Jontay Porter at $80,000, there's going to be a red flag.
There's going to be a red flag. There's going to be, especially if you're taking the parlay, if you're taking the prop over. But then the question becomes, though, why is Vegas setting prop bets on NBA players' total scores and total rebounds who only average 14 minutes a game? I mean, come on.
I thought about this, right? I
understand it in the Super Bowl, but
I've played some pretty terrible bets.
Yeah.
Not going to pretend I haven't. When I was in Jersey and I found out we can gamble, I went to town. I had to delete the app because part of me believes I might be an addict. So, but I know basketball, or at least I feel like I know basketball pretty well to bet on certain guys. Let me make this super clear. If you're betting on Jontay Porter, you have one of two problems. One is you have inside information, you're about to get arrested. Two, you are an addict to no end and you heard information. That's all I know. Because if you're betting on Jontay Porter, one, you're crazy. Two, you have inside information. And three, you're an addict.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
all
three of those items are true.
Yes, exactly. All three can be true at the same time.
That's right. Well, let's pivot a little bit off of Jontay Porter. One thing I want to talk about before we get to this crazy bank loan situation out of South America. God. The transfer portal. We've talked about the transfer portal on here a while, and there's really two big windows for the portal. There's the after the season concludes window, which is the largest window, right? It's when if schools are going to make coaching changes, they make it at the end of the season, and it's when the most players end up in the portal. There's also a window now, which is after the conclusion or right at the conclusion. Most schools have already had their spring game, but some of them haven't. Some of them I think are this weekend, but I think it wraps it up this weekend. Auburn had theirs 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. But the transfer portal opened, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. And look, I'm not like a lot of my friends in the fact that I don't know why so many people have such strong hatred towards Deion Sanders. I don't. I think he's good for college football. I'd be happy to let my
a
kid.
couple reasons that people don't like him. One, they're probably just racist jerks, but also, because I'm not saying your friends are. I'm saying it's a possibility, but also because Deion's brash.
He
comes right at your face, and he makes it. People don't like to be told people don't like to be told what's up, and he's just going to say it no matter how you feel.
He is, and I always come from the school, and it's just my style, and obviously Deion's style is different than mine, and that's completely fine. He's had a lot more success than I have, but I always like to lower expectations and then exceed them. Deion raises expectations, and then they're hard to meet. Right now, the over under on total wins, I think last year for the Buffaloes was 3.5, and they had 4 wins for the first 5 games of the season. Now, I don't know that they won another game, right? I mean, maybe one more, right? But
I think maybe 1 or 2 more games. I'll look it up.
It was interesting that this week, in the last 2 days, 14 Colorado players have entered the portal, and I just scratched my head wondering what's going on over there. And so as I was kind of scanning the wire for topics for this week, that one kind of stood out. Kyle Bonagura, who is a great writer on the West Coast for ESPN, wrote a story on it, and Deion said, quote, "We're good. I trust the recruiting team. I trust our coaches, and please have faith in me. We're good. We're all right. We're all right." Sanders then said most of the movement in the transfer portal consisted of backups, and he believes it's rare for starters to enter the portal at this stage. I think that's right, and I think that's probably fair. But, 14 players enter in the portal. I mean, Auburn struggled with the portal like all. And I think we had 1, maybe 2 players kind of enter the portal, and it looks like most of the teams that I looked at are kind of looking at that, because if you were going to enter the portal and you were unhappy with the program, you probably would have entered at the end of the year. So I think that's something we ought to just keep our eye on. And, but
I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people go to Colorado in hopes of maybe it'll bring my Instagram numbers up.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll bring my whatever, maybe I'll get more playing time because I am at Colorado and it's not that big of a school and compared to the other schools that wouldn't even give me a shot. But then what happens is they probably realize they probably see 2 sides of Deion, right? The side of Deion we see is the one that's like excited to have you on the team. Let's do this, rah, rah. We're going to be big dogs in this house. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that you're great, I'm great, and we're great. Then they get there and realize that it's not all fun and games, and Deion's probably a hard coach. Deion probably coaches players pretty hard. He made Jackson State a good football team.
Yeah.
And last year to start the season, I know, yes, they did end up going 4-8. But, to start the season, Shador played well. Like, guys played well, but also it was probably really hard to play on that team. A bunch of dudes left before the season started.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the case with Deion. They probably come in thinking, I'm going to go play for Deion. Then they realize they're playing for Deion Sanders, and it's not as fun as you thought it would be. And let's be honest, in this generation, I'm not saying kids don't work hard. They do. These kids work incredibly hard to get to where they're at. But they're also in a generation where, they don't get yelled at anymore because they do get paid to do whatever they want.
That's right.
And they're getting Rolls Royces, and they're getting Range Rovers, and they're getting Corvettes, and it's legal now.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me they're like, I'm going to get yelled at by Deion Sanders, who I haven't seen play in 20 years? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Possible.
Look, I think they're going to be better this year.
Yes.
And they have 2 players that are likely going to be, first-round draft picks in next year's draft, Travis Hunter and then Shador Sanders. I'm curious to see how Deion does in year 3 of the program, because he won't have Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders. And again, I'm hoping the best for him, but either way, it's going to be extremely entertaining.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be all for the next whatever amount of years. If Deion's coaching, wherever he's coaching, we're going to be watching.
That's right. All right, last story today. We had to touch upon this, even though it's
Did you know about this before I texted you?
I had heard something about it, but I
Okay.
had not looked at the details of it.
Oh my
When I
god!
looked at the details of it, it's even more frightening. So, a woman, Erica Nunez, 42 years old, in an area outside, just about 30, 40 miles outside Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, tried to obtain a bank loan this week. On Tuesday of this week, a woman brought a man in a wheelchair into a South American bank and attempted to take out a loan in his name. And I'm sure a woman bringing a man in a wheelchair I'm sure it happens across the world.
Never weird. That's totally fine.
But what made this attempt at a loan unique is that the man had been dead for hours. The woman claimed the man, identified by police, a 68-year-old Paulo Roberto Braga, was her uncle and wanted to sign for papers for a $3,250 loan. Now, the woman told police that she routinely cared for her uncle, but you got to give it to the bank employees. They got suspicious. They got suspicious and they called the police. During the police
Can you give
interview,
the details as to why they were suspicious? Because I heard some of them.
well,
It was that she pretended to talk to him, nodded his head. She nodded his head, and she picked up his hand to write to sign the check or to sign the deposit or whatever. Chip, if you're a bank employee and when you finally realize that guy is either dead or passed out, that moment must be so surreal.
a bank employee said, I don't think this is legal. He doesn't look well. He's very pale. One teller says in the video that captured the scene inside the bank. Nunez responds and says, he's just like that.
Oh my God. Let's give props to this woman for having the cojones to walk into a bank with a dead guy, full weekend at Bernie's for $3,000. Now, is it $3,000 in American money? Or was this $3,000 in I'm sorry, I don't want to come off as ignorant, but I don't know what.
I don't know what the conversion rate is for Brazilian currency, but I'm going to guess that it was an amount that's probably comparable because the article had a dollar sign on it to 3,200.
Okay, and that's what. Yeah, we're going to assume it's still. Oh, Chip, that is this. When I heard this story, I'm in the car. I almost crashed because I was laughing so hard. I'm sorry that we rest in peace. Okay, let's get that out of the way. But just the idea that she pretended to talk to him and then moved his hand.
But if she knew he was dying, and I'm assuming she did, and
she spent all that time with him, yeah,
and she was wanting to obtain a loan in his name, why not take him to the bank when he's incapacitated and about to die?
Yes.
And try to obtain the loan, like maybe a couple days earlier?
This is what I think happened. Somebody said there's a chance they had an agreement and he died early. And all I could think to myself was like, first of all, nobody dies early. They just die. Second, this woman was waiting. If it was hours after he died, she's been waiting for him to die for quite some time. Because the body was probably still a little warm.
My father passed probably 6-7 years ago, and it was it was devastating, right? He was my hero, but we knew once he got into the hospital, and he was septic. He had sepsis after a surgery.
Oh.
And when you get septic, I didn't know what that was at the time. It's awful, but
it's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, and ultimately he passed from it. But his best friend best friend, a guy by the name of Larry Bacon, who is just
That's such a great name.
great human being, and one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. And I remember as on that Sunday morning, as my father was taken off of a ventilator and we knew he was about to pass, we were all there as a family, and he died, and there were tears, and we all held hands in kind of a room off of the ICU, and we cried and we prayed. And Mr. Bacon, who, as I said, was one of Dad's best friends, turned to me when everybody was looking. He said, when your father passed, he owed me a significant amount of money, and he said, just get with you afterwards, and the trust will handle it. And it was, it was a good breaker to a very tense situation.
That man gets it.
And
I don't know
everybody
what this
started
man
dying
is.
laughing, because if you know Mr. Bacon,
amazing.
you know that's his humor, right? Hey, when your father passed, he owed me a significant amount of money. He just told me to get with you and you'd take care of it.
That man, I want that man at every sad event.
It was great.
That's incredible.
It was great because it something needed to happen to kind of
100%.
get everybody from down.
Yeah, it always does. And there's always
and it reminded me of this old lady, wheeling in her uncle. She should have said, "Look, he would want me to get this loan in his name."
Yeah. No, you don't understand. He said I can have this money. He just said I need to bring him in after it happens.
Exactly right. Exactly. James, our time's flown by, man. I really enjoyed it. And we'll be back on Monday. Doug will be back on Monday. He's been serving our country in the United States Air Force Reserves. We thank him for that. We thank everybody that serves, and we will see everybody on Monday.
Next Friday.
Next Friday we're going to talk about the NFL draft. So
cheers or tears. That's what's coming next Friday. So
we'll get it, and either way, we're going to talk about it. So thanks for joining us on the Doug Collins podcast. We'll see you on Monday.